Huzur, my question is about halal food.
Yes.
What about eating McDonald's beef burgers and beef or chicken bought at an English grocer? It would be tayyib, but not halal.
It would be what?
It would be tayyib.
But not halal.
Yes.
Now you are putting the cart before the horse. You are reverting the whole thing upside down. Nothing can be halal which is not tayyib. But there could be tayyibs, halals which are not tayyib. Halal comes first and then comes tayyib. Everything halal is not tayyib. But everything tayyib has to be halal.
I see. What I meant was that it is clean and hygienic, but it is not halal. Like the beef.
Who told you they are not halal?
The one we buy at McDonald's or the English grocers, they're not halal.
So they're not halal, you know that?
I mean, they're not kosher in the Islamic way.
No, but how do you know that the concept of halal in Judaism is exactly the same as that in Islam? This is your guesswork. The fact is that the Holy Quran has discussed this question of meats in various places and has thrown some fundamental light in principle on various situations. This has been discussed by me many a time before, but in short I will try to answer this question only in short and in principles. Number one, everything which is slaughtered for anyone besides Allah, for the sake of any imaginary God or a real person, not for God, that is haram, that is forbidden, and nothing can make it halal, whatever you read over it and whatever you recite over it. And there are certain animals which are haram, that is forbidden, like pigs, and also beasts of prey. They can never be turned into halal, whatever you do, whatever you read over them. Both these under the condition that there is one exception given by God, that if you have to save life, then only that much of the haram can be taken which suffices to save life, and not beyond that. And because it is permitted, so it becomes halal. Only under these conditions, the flesh of certain animals can become halal, otherwise they remain haram, that is forbidden. Then Allah says that whatever you slaughter, you take Allah's name before slaughtering. That is the perfect way, the ideal way of eating the flesh of those animals whose meat is not forbidden. They should be properly slaughtered in the Islamic traditions, and you should recite God's name to indicate that the sanctity of life is important. Only if you have taken permission or you have been permitted by the Creator and the Master of life, you have no right to take others' life. That is the principle behind it, the philosophy behind it. So that is the perfect halal. Now in between the perfect haram and perfect halal, there are no man's lands which can fall to this category or that category, in which you can drag an animal from tending to be haram towards halal by doing things, or they are vice versa. Things which appear to be halal to you can be pushed to the haram side if you don't go about it in the proper manner. And there, certain things should be kept in mind. Of all the halal animals which are not forbidden, which are permitted for you to eat, if you go about slaughtering them in a manner or killing them in a manner as has not prescribed by the Holy Quran as the right manner, they would, being in itself initially, essentially halal, they can be turned into haram. For instance, if you strangle an animal and the death occurs by strangling and no blood is let out, that meat becomes haram. Even if it is chicken, even if it is a chicken raised in your own farm, still it would become haram. So apparently by itself it is not haram, but the way you go about it turns it into haram. Similarly, if an animal has died a natural death, it would become haram, even if the meat was not forbidden. If an animal has died after having met with an accident and before you reached it to slaughter it, it had died, then it would become haram. So all these animals, although fundamentally and essentially they were halal, that is permitted to begin with, the way you go about them, they can become haram. On the contrary, if an animal is slaughtered for human purpose and the blood is let out and no name has been read over it other than that of God, nor that of God, either by omission or according to the custom. If such meat which was slaughtered for human purposes is available and the Muslim, the mu'min, the believer, recites Bismillah before eating it, previously it was not halal, but now it will become halal for him. So according to the tradition of Bukhari, Hazrat Aisha Siddiqa radhiyallahu ta'ala anha tells us that sometimes meat used to come from areas around Mecca of which we didn't know whether it was slaughtered properly according to the Muslim tradition or not. But Hazrat sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that recite the name of Allah, that is Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and eat it and do not be in doubt. But if you knew positively that somebody else's name was taken over it or it was strangled and not slaughtered, then it would remain haram. So the doubtful out of the middle of the land way cases belonging to no man's land, some can be converted into halal and some can be converted into haram according to the way you go about them. So there are three categories. Positive halals, they are not only permitted for you to eat, but they are ideally slaughtered in the best traditions of Islam. Positive harams, which cannot be turned into halals, anyway, whatever you do, they would remain haram, except for saving for the purpose of saving life. And thirdly, the cases in between, there I have explained, and I think that's all about it. So about the McDonald's, I don't know what they do about their meat and how they buy it and how they slaughter the animals, if they do. I don't know. If the chicken, for instance, in England or anywhere in Europe, is strangled, as previously it was the custom here to strangle chickens, and the chicken dies before it is slaughtered and the blood is let. Even if you read Bismillah over it 10,000 times, it would remain haram. So don't eat such chicken. But if it is slaughtered and Bismillah has not been read, and you read Bismillah, recite Bismillah before eating, it would be all right for you. Although not of the first degree halal, but it will become halal all right. Again, I am reminded of another situation where somebody shoots a bird Now the boys in our country have been shooting birds not with bullets or with arrows, but with earthen balls we call gulela. No, gulela. That's not catapult. Catapult is gulel. With the catapult, the thing which they... No, it's not stone. It's made of earthen ball. This is why I said it. The earthen ball, which is called gulela, they shoot the bird with that, putting it in the catapult. Now, if that bird dies before one reaches it and slaughters it, that would become haram, because it has no blood was let out while it was alive. But most people do not care and don't teach their children that they should see to it that it becomes haram. Now, before you shoot with guns and things where blood is let, you must say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. If you say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim and the bird is dead by the time you reach it, if you cannot slaughter it, it becomes halal. There is nothing haram about it. But if you intentionally avoid saying Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, then it becomes haram. But if you forget Bismillah, you're shooting birds so many times, and sometimes you're so excited, all your attention is towards the bird, that at that time you don't remember reciting Bismillah. So not intentionally, but through omission, you forget to say Bismillah. That bird would still be halal for you, as if you had recited Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Now this situation is also found in Bukhari, under a tradition of Hazrat, again narrated by Hazrat Aisha Siddiqa radhiyallahu ta'ala anha, and perhaps by some others. But this tradition is also found in Bukhari, that if a Muslim shoots a bird or an animal and forgets to recite Bismillah before that, because he is a believer and it is his intention generally to say recite Bismillah, that animal would not become haram for him, even if Bismillah is not recited before. Recite it afterwards, before eating, it would be as good as that. When you slaughter an animal, you say Bismillah Allahu Akbar, but when you eat, then it is not necessary that you say full Bismillah Allahu Akbar. All that I have read, it is only mentioned that you should recite Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Instead, the first words are those of permission, seeking permission or denoting permission, that we are doing it under permission and the license from God. Allahu Akbar is just extolation, which comes upon about fish. Bismillah is necessary for everything. Yes.
They don't eat fish which is without any scale.
That is different. That is a different question altogether. The Shias do it because, according to their history, when Hazrat at the time of Karbala, some corpses were thrown into the river by the enemy, or some perhaps fell into the river, and they were eaten by carnivorous fish. And because carnivorous fish has no scales, generally speaking, maybe there are some exceptions, perhaps there are, but as a general thumb rule you can say that carnivorous fish have scales on their bodies and the vegetarian fish has no scale. So they think that they ate the flesh of those holy men, and because it was an insult on the part of the fish to have eaten, according to their faith, to have eaten the flesh of such holy men, so So they say they are haram now. We're not going to eat the flesh, while it could be construed in a different way. They might have thought that the flesh of such a fish should be eaten with a vengeance, because they had, that's also one way of looking at it. But they're all just man-made things. There's nothing in it. All the realities, all the fundamentals of Islam are found in the Holy Quran. So they are just sentimental things which can be construed anyway. Yes, please. Yes, please.
So this is a related question.
Come to the microphone and...
Assalamu alaikum. So the related question is that it seems that two philosophies. One is that the blood is gone out of the animal, and the second is that one is killing in the name of God, or
that's right,
saying, praying before.
Correct.
But the confusion just arises me in my mind is that either of the philosophy, if it is present, does it become halal? I mean, in one situation you said that if it has been killed, but the blood has gone out, then if you pray afterward or say Bismillah, it becomes halal. But the second case is that when you kill with the gun...
if 2 and 2 make 4,
yeah, but
will 1, 2 be enough to make 4?
What I was saying is the conflicting point in my mind was that if it was killed and blood hasn't gone out, and even you say 1,000 times Bismillah, it would not become halal.
Yes, correct.
But the second case, when you kill with the gun and you have said Bismillah, but the blood hasn't gone out, that becomes halal.
No, wherever an animal is killed by injury, the blood is let out. Whether it is an internal hemorrhage or external, that does not make any difference. It has left the system and the arteries and veins, and it has bled into the cavities within the body. So that is what is essential. And that blood, when you slaughter that animal later on, I mean you skin it and make it for you, prepare it for use, for cooking, that blood is automatically wasted. If you wash it, it will be washed out or found in clots here and there. So blood is always let out. When you kill something with a pointed or a sharp weapon, if it's an outward injury, the blood would be let out and would be visibly seen. If it is an internal hemorrhage, it would again be let out, of course. But with an obtuse weapon and a blunt weapon, an animal can die without there being an internal hemorrhage. So that is the main difference.
So the example you referred to, Gulela, if the animal dies before you reach a chance to knife it, and does that mean the blood is gone out as you explained it now in that situation?
No, but these situations are doubtful situations. The fact is that you always decide by generalities, and the majority of cases are kept in view. So if there are some minor exceptions, you can't decide about that.
Okay.
You make the rule by the majority cases.
Okay.
So in case of Gulela, more often than not, blood would not be let out, either internally or externally. A contusion would be produced and death can be caused with contusion. But if you strike with some sharp weapon, like an arrow or a bullet, then most obviously and most probably, almost in every case, there would be some injury with which blood would be let out. Islam